to Lockdown Beers and Rugby Chat, brought to you to help you get through lockdown. And we had some news as to when we'll be starting to come out of that today. So we'll have a chat about that and the impact that might have on the old NPC and Farah Palmer Cup over here in New Zealand. We've got a Rugby World Cup qualifier to talk about. The US, Canada taking on the USA over the weekend. The Black Ferns today announced a squad to go over to Europe for 2 games against England and 2 games against France. We've got some concussion news from the game at the weekend, plus red card controversy, obviously. And the Canes have announced another player of signing. So lots of stuff to chat about today. Any other rugby topics you think I missed? Throw them in the live chat. If you're on Twitter, there's also a link there where you can go and come and join me on screen, have a chat. Hope you are all staying safe. And let's follow the rules so that we do get out of this lockdown as quickly and for as long as possible as well. Also get vaccinated, folks. We need that to open up the country and for us to live with COVID in the long run. Got myself a beer. I've got about 15 seconds before I can open it. Yep, it's a Tui, and you can see I've got had a couple of Tuis, a couple of Moas, some Lion Reds and some Boundary Road Brewery beers up there. Anyone want to send me some beers that can go there as well? Yeah, that'd be nice. Anyway, and it's now 5 o'clock, folks. So knock off work, grab yourself a beer, and let's chill out and relax at the end of a long day. If you've been working from home or working from anywhere, really. If you work from not from home, then I guess you'd be getting home and commuting rather than actually listening to me. But there you go. These things happen. So cheers, folks. Leave the gas in the glass. That's how I pour these kind of things. Don't forget, if you want to join me over on Twitter, there's a link. You can come on screen and have a chat with me because it looks like my regular people aren't going to turn up. I'm going to be on my own today. Also, in the live chat, throw in any comments. But let's kick off then with that game from the weekend. We had Canada versus the USA. USA going into this game very much as favourites and have had some good results against Canada over the last few years. It's been a few years since Canada have beaten them. The USA had the upper hand. They got a penalty try after only 4 minutes for that one, and had the upper hand, but kept on having issues and not being able to finish, and that meant that they only led by 10-14 at half time. Most of the points coming from the boot from Canada, with 2 tries from the USA. So a small lead at half time. In the second half, though, Canada really went to work and 3 unanswered tries saw them take out a lead of 34-14 in that one. So a big lead there for Canada. The USA at the death got themselves a try back to make it 34-21, which is important because they play the reverse fixture in the USA next week or this coming weekend, and it's the aggregate score across the 2 games that decides who gets to qualify. Remember, Canada last time out had to go all the way to the repechage to qualify. So the USA and Uruguay both qualified ahead of them. So this was a massive victory for Canada. Well done on that one. It was very difficult to watch. I've not actually seen the game or seen any highlights. It was behind it was actually pay-per-view here in New Zealand. Not many people paid to watch that, but I have heard 2 Cents Rugby's review of the game, which is where I'm getting my sort of opinions from on how that all went. So big one for that there. Craig says, thanks for the after-match podcast, Paul. Listened to at work today. Yeah, I do. I've been doing post-match reactions on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for a long time, but not put them up as podcasts. So perhaps we'll start putting them up as podcasts so you can hear the post-match reaction to the games. And don't forget, folks, if you'd like to support me in my to be able to bring you all of that kind of stuff, then please head over to patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio to become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio. With 3 videos out actually for you over the weekend. We had 3 videos and podcasts just for supporters. One looking at the latest news around Fiji Drua. Another one where Stephen and I picked our Moana Pacifica squads. And then for those of you who are interested in English rugby, Andrew Seibold has signed as the defensive coach under Eddie Jones. So I got I've got back Brad, our NRL expert, to tell me all about Andrew Seibold, as he used to be the head coach of the Rabbitohs and also the Brisbane Broncos. So go and check those. You can get all those, I say, just for supporters. Legend. Thanks, Craig, for that one. The nocturnal rights, Canada were decent back in the 90s, but haven't kicked on quite right too. But they have got the Arrows now, the Toronto Arrows, which means they do have a professional team in Major League Rugby, which is helping them, helping their team, obviously. But administration issues have been a big problem for Canada. Absolute mess on that side of things. We've had the Canadian women come out and talk about some of those issues around that as well. Really, I say, an absolute mess up there. But let's hope things are on the mend on that one. The Black Ferns were announced. Squad was announced today with 3 players coming back from the Olympics Sevens. Aaron, I'll get your comment in a second. In this one, with Stacey Fuller, Kelly Brazier, and Portia Woodman all joining the 15 sides, head over to Europe to play England twice and France twice there. I know Stephen Harris will be happy to see that the Crystal on Black Crystal Murray has made it as one of the props, a Northland girl involved there. Also, she used to be part of the New Zealand Rugby League team, so bringing those skills across. Fantastic. So great to see that tour is still going ahead and those being selected. If anyone would like to give me some little lowdown on those selections and who you think has been a good or bad, or who's missed out, or who you think is the surprise selections, let me know. Les Elder is back from having a baby to lead the Tide, captain the side, with vice captains for Eloise Blackwell and Kendra Coxage in that lot. So level 2, return to level 2 for everyone outside of Auckland from Tuesday night. As Aaron says, from my cursor, there we go. Auckland has still got another 7 days at level 4 at least. I have to see how those cases go. At least they're coming down, which is great to see. So great job, Auckland, in following the lockdown rules and bringing those case numbers down. It's heading in the right direction. So you're getting there. Well done. Thank you from the rest of us in New Zealand for doing that for us. It looks like that they're on track for that return to the NPC on the 24th of September. So about 2 weeks worth of contact training before they get back to that. That means we'll have missed 5 rounds of the NPC that will need to be caught up. It means that our first game will be on the 24th September with Tasman versus Waikato, most likely. We'll wait for some announcements on that. Followed by Southland versus Canterbury, and Manawatu versus Northland on the 25th on the Saturday. Counties Manukau versus Auckland, you'd imagine, would be postponed still. Wellington versus Hawke's Bay on the Sunday. You'd expect Otago North Harbour to be postponed, as again North Harbour won't have had the time to prepare for that game. And finally, Bay of Plenty versus Taranaki. So hopefully, I'll be able to get to Bay of Plenty versus Taranaki as the media. I don't know if we'll be at level 2 or level 1 by that point, but if we're still at level 2, then it's 100 people only. So hopefully I'll be allowed or able to get to that one at Tauranga Domain. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. So yeah, just the one game I'll be able to get to there for those ones. And then we'll have midweek games as well, probably to catch up on those 5 weeks of missed games. So keep an eye out for all of that going forwards. And Mr. Stephen Harris is joining me. Obviously, he's been hard at work today, and only just managed to put the phone down and stop taking orders. And he's on his water. So hydration, absolutely hydration. Stephen, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, just in a meeting, Paul. Sorry about that, mate. But hey, I thought I'd quickly jump on and join you, mate. You'll have to fill me in.
Yeah, we're just talking about the return to level 2 tomorrow night, and how that the NPC will be back on probably the 24th of September, as expected. I was just running through those games. So Tasman Waikato on the Friday, Southland Canterbury and Manawatu Northern on the Saturday, Wellington Hawke's Bay and Bay of Plenty versus Taranaki on the Sunday, with Counties Manukau versus Auckland and Otago versus North Harbour most likely to be postponed because those teams, or three of those teams, won't have had a chance to train and get ready. So Bay of Plenty versus Taranaki, the only game I'll be able to get to for that one, but we will try and get to those ones and to keep the coverage of the Bunnings NPC. On the Farah Palmer Cup side, they should have finished already by then. The final was due to take place on the 10th of September. So basically this coming weekend. Clearly that's not happening. So we'll have to wait for news as to how the Farah Palmer Cup will resume for this year. I expect that we're going to miss, obviously, the NPC rarely has All Blacks involved, but the Farah Palmer Cup normally does. And you'd think if it's going to overrun past 10th September, the Black Ferns are going to be missing because they'll be on tour to the UK. I had a very quick chat about a very quick mention, I'll say, of the Black Ferns squad. I don't know if you had time to see it. That was announced at 2:00 today.
Yes, I have seen the squad. In fact, I've just got it in front of me, just looking over. I see there's a few new caps in there, Paul.
Yeah, go on, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised it's so many new caps in the squad, but just looking through some of the names, some of them, yeah, definitely have played their way in. And just to give you an idea, somebody like Liana Mikaeli too, originally from down in the in the Hawke's Bay. I think she might have moved up to Auckland, playing a bit of code up in Auckland. I think she's always been a player of who's been basically targeted as one that was always going to basically go places. But a lot of the experienced names in there, Kendra Coxedge as well. I'm just sort of looking around. She's obviously, looks like there's two captains sharing the role. No, sorry, beg your pardon. Liz Older is the captain of the team. And,
yes, Liz Older with Eloise Blackwell and Kendra Coxedge vice captaining. We've got three players come back for the Olympics, which I mentioned. I guess, yeah, you're a bit of a surprise when you think that the Rugby World Cup is next year. And so to see quite so many caps this late in the cycle is a bit of a surprise. But obviously, having been delayed with COVID, maybe there's a few players that have decided to retire or not make themselves available that were originally on the plan to be part of this one. Also, it looks like there's 8 players injured who are unavailable for selection as well. So yes, that's probably also played into the fact that we've got all those new caps. But I mean, 2 games against England, 2 games against France, 2 of the top teams in the world. Should be a cracking set of games, and we'll definitely be looking to watch those. Hopefully Sky has those on and we can bring you reports and updates from those folks. Yeah. I noticed that obviously we had a couple of concussions from the weekend out on the All Blacks game. Arnie Surveyor and Cody Taylor were both got concussed during the Bledisloe Cup 3. Reports on Twitter from Alex Chapman, the reporter from News Hub. He says that they've both apparently woken up with no side effects. We'll go through the usual return to play protocols. Personally, I would like to see both of them rested next weekend, but I don't think you should be playing the following weekend if you've been concussed. I think you should take a week off, but we'll have to wait and see on that one, Stephen, with the Pumas game lined up for next Sunday.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I don't really know if there's any need for those 2 players to be rolled out. I was quite impressed with even when Artie Savia left the field, how that loose forward trio operated, and there might even be an opportunity to start with, say, for example, Jacobson, who could also slot into that number 8 position. And I thought Takiahoa, apart from a couple of wayward line-out throws in the main, added a lot of value to that team. He certainly adds a lot of size to that front row. That's an interesting one. I know a little bit of talk on our own chat about Marika Korobeti not going off for an HI test, but sort of at the end of the day, was he knocked out? He might have just basically taken a bit of a sprig to the face. I don't know if there was enough for him to have got an HIA checked. He seemed like he was in pretty good spirits for the rest of the game.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, no, I agree, and we'll touch on the red card in a second. But I guess the problem with Cody Taylor and Ardy Surveyor is with Sam Whitelock missing, that the amount of experience you've got in that side drops off. When you think if you go with Papulehi, Blackwell, and Akiriwani, or Akiriwani and as you say, Luke Jacobson, it's all those guys. It is a very inexperienced back row. So yeah, your lack of leaders there. If you take two of those two experienced players out, so I can understand why the All Blacks will want them back. It also would bring up the question of who would captain the team. I can't remember who captained when Ardy went off at the weekend, so it'll be interesting. So a number of selection issues for the All Blacks if they decide not to include these two players, which I say I personally don't think they should do.
Paul, I think this is a good thing for the All Blacks. I mean, I think in the past, All Black coaches have maybe been a little bit guilty of picking these really big squads, but not giving enough of their squad an actual run. But here's a situation where you might have to rest half a dozen. You know that three guys who would be over there are not over there at the minute. I'll tell you what. Put them out there. What have you got to lose?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they should do. But I'm just pointing out how inexperienced that pack would become with say three leaders having or four when you include Sam Cane having not be available.
Wow.
For one.
That's a really good point. We forget that Sam Cane isn't there. We also forget that guys like Joe Moody and Ofa Tuanga Fasi are basically working their way back into rugby. I can probably see a rest maybe coming for Nepo Lolala. He seems to have been at the cornerstone of that scrum through most of the season. So I can see a rest maybe coming his way as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously Patrick Tupelotu with his groin or hamstring that meant that he missed this game. Was unavailable for it. Yeah, he needs the All Blacks need him back because we've only got 3 fit locks on tour at the moment, which could be a bit of an issue. And look, trying to get anyone out there, obviously they have to go through 2 weeks of quarantine. So there's no quick fixes for injuries of players, which is so. But yeah, I think they've got the depth out there to deal without Ardy and Cody, both obviously first choices, but. I don't think resting them would be a bad move. Talking of that red card, then I think we were all unanimous in agreeing that it was a red card in our live chat, and I've mentioned most of that. Interesting to see that the All Blacks have said, a bit surprised, and we'll challenge it. Well, look, folks, when you read that, essentially they'll challenge it every single time to try and reduce the amount of time that they actually spend in being banned. And some people say that he was doing it to protect himself. I don't think he was. He basically went up, misjudged it, got himself with his shoulders too far back, brought his leg up to balance himself, to bring himself so he landed down properly, and unfortunately caught somebody in the face. I think it was not intentional, but it was reckless, and it was bad execution of the jump. And if you don't get it right, well, that's what kind of happens. A bit like in a tackle, you can say, he didn't mean to tackle him in the head. No, but if you're going to be tackling at around that place, if you get it wrong, it's what can happen.
Paul, it's a little bit like a fend in close quarter. You go out, say for example, you've basically just received the ball, or you've changed hands, and you just put your hand out, not always deliberately. It can be a reflex thing, and you hit somebody in the head with the elbow. Unfortunately, it's an elbow too. It's damn unlucky because sometimes it can just be a reflex thing. But listen, when we were watching the game, you noticed our rugby chat. I called it straight away. As soon as it happened, I thought, man, this is a red card all day. And basically the slow motion just basically reconfirmed with. Yeah, a little bit of bad luck, but but that's something for Geordie Barrett to work on. It's really odd. I know I was talking to Boa about it, and Boa was saying this is how a lot of teams are training at the moment. And I actually looked at a video of Ben Smith taking high kicks, and incredibly, his leg was going up at the extension of the leg. But I suspect you're right, Paul. I just think he'd realised he got himself in the wrong position, just overcompensated a wee bit, and just on the way down, poor Marika just got his face in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it's up to both players to ensure whether it's the catcher or whether it's the tackler coming in to ensure both themselves are going to be safe.
Yeah, I was going to bring up. Hey, Con, good to see you. Sorry, here we are talking away over you.
No, don't mind me. Just hanging out.
Just going to share up a picture that's got tweeted to me, and obviously Twitter being fun and games. But yeah, this is my point. If you look at the yellow lines now, look, you've got parallax error and cameras and stuff, but basically, as you can see, Geordie gets his shoulders are not above his hips, therefore he can see himself rotating. He puts his leg out to straighten himself up. Yeah, so you can see exactly what happened. And why it happened that way. But yes, they are trained to bring the just get my cursor in the right place, the knee up to protect themselves from. But they're also trained to keep the studs pointing at the ground, not forwards. So yeah, there we go. On that one, interesting one that Nocturnal Rights has brought up here. Curious that Ian Foster said they sent Vi out there to play blindside, but Scott Barrett said he was playing there. Foster said that was a player initiative, but maybe Scott Barrett pulling rank. Thoughts on that one, boys?
I thought it was unusual for me. I would have sent another loose forward out there because I just thought it was an area and the style of game that they were playing. But the loose forwards were going reasonably well at the time. Now he replaced.
I was going to say I don't see. I think the problem was that with Arnie Surveyor coming off at half time and Blackwell going on, that Blackadder, not Blackwell. Jeez, Blackadder going on. That meant they had no loose forward replacements when they did send Via on. So I think that was part of.
I would have went the other way around. I would have put Via into lock and Scott Barrett, because he's played in that loose forward jersey. Probably should have slotted into that blindside role.
Well, that's what he did do, but yeah, he did that on the pitch. That wasn't what the coaches said. So interesting, that one. But after he played blindside in the Rugby World Cup semi-final, that went really well.
Did you have to remind us?
We don't talk about that, do we?
Yeah.
Paul, actually, a question for you. I was listening to one of your things the other day. Are you not that you have to declare any allegiance, but there you go. It's probably just answered my question. Are you a general English supporter or something else?
I'll answer that. I'll answer that for you, Con. You can take the boy out of England, but you can't take England out of the boy. There you go.
That's good. No, good on you.
That's it. Listen, I love that. I know there's a lot of expatriates that live in New Zealand, and I've got South African friends who say they support the All Blacks and the Springboks, and I go, why? I've got to be honest. If I moved to South Africa, I'd still support the All Blacks. There's nothing wrong with actually being fiercely loyal. I know one of the guys that we use, John O'Connor. He lets us know pretty much every day that he's a Springbok supporter, and you know what? Nothing wrong with that. He's drawn a line in the sand. If you know
Obviously,
what I mean.
I expect, Paul, your second team's probably New Zealand, hopefully. But obviously in South Africa, no, maybe not. South Africa.
Well, that's harsh, Stephen.
Come on,
you can declare it now once and for all, Paul. You can tell us, and then we know.
My second team is obviously the Lions. After,
okay.
but then we can bring in New Zealand. Yeah,
I think if a tier 2 nation was to knock the All Blacks over, I don't think Paul would have too much of a problem with that. I must admit that would be a cool thing. But on saying that, not great for All Black supporters, but you can only imagine how Springbok supporters were actually feeling when they got beaten back in Brighton, back in 2015 Rugby World Cup. And that was a great game. And for anybody out there, if you get an opportunity to watch the Brighton Miracle, which is on Sky at the moment,
great,
absolutely fantastic. Even as a Kiwi, it actually brought tears to my eyes. And it wasn't so much about the victory over, it was just the reaction of the Japanese players, because they were basically using actors and real excerpts, and you just saw what sort of passion it meant to them. And you know what? It's just a lot of fun to watch.
It's a really good film. It was far better than I thought. Great acting, and the way that they spliced real footage with obviously shot footage was excellent. I just on your point.
When you are watching those though, folks, remember it is a film, and whilst it's based on reality, it won't be 100%. It's certainly from someone's point of view.
Are you saying Tamura Morrison's not a great coach? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Sorry, probably not too bad. On the point you made before, Stephen, I last year, one of my brother's friends who's a big rugby head, and probably this gives an indication as to the typical fair weather All Black fan. There's no doubt that New Zealand fans are often reasonably confident in our abilities, but when understatement. When Argentina were admitted to the Rugby Championship, or when it was formed, he said, "What's the point? Argentina will never ever beat the All Blacks." They actually had a big argument about, because I think at the time, Russia got brought into the Rugby World Cup for the first time, if I recall, and there's a lot of talk about that they were having an argument. But basically, he said Argentina are never ever going to beat the All Blacks, and so that was his opinion based on 2011. Now we all know Argentina did really well in 2007, but I was texting him. He hadn't talked to the guy for a few years, but I was texting him, last year and going, "Are you going to send a message to your mate and tell him that, because I think they had a bet going on," and I think that things do change quite quickly. When he said that, a lot of people would have believed it, but at the beginning of last year, I think not many people would have thought Argentina were going to beat the All Blacks last year, but they would have known it was coming. And I think I like to think about the teams that. What in 20 years, which team is not on our radar that might actually be doing quite well? Japan aside.
I think the team that I reckon that will knock over or take a big scalp in maybe the next year or two is actually Fiji, because where their players a lot of their forwards are playing, so they will basically, because usually the big issue with Fiji or Pacific Island teams over the years is could they front up in the forwards. Well, I think Fiji definitely showed they could front up in the forwards. And when you consider at the end of the day their preparation was really, really short, I think those two scores and those tests pretty much flattered the All Blacks. They really did. They didn't Fijian didn't deserve to lose by those amount of points. And listen, if the Fijians, in a perfect world, it would have been nice if the Fijians had got a lot closer on the scoreboard. Once upon a time, we'd all hoped when Wales had knocked over, Western Samoa had knocked over Wales at World Cup, we thought, things would progress forward. And I suppose that's the frustrating thing. We know that the Pacific Islands have
if they played with the whole Samoa, imagine what would have happened.
Oh, yeah, not just Western Samoa, American Samoa as well. Exactly, and I think it's the rate of change that frustrates people. But boy, a couple of results. That result last year, Argentina, the All Blacks, that came out of nowhere because they were supposedly in lockdown. A good number of their management had COVID. Some of their players had COVID. What could they possibly bring after doing absolutely nothing in a year? Well, they wrote our own piece of their history. And ironically, sometimes these results would come when you least expected. See, the Irish result in Chicago, I kind of wasn't surprised by that in a way, because the All Blacks were over there doing promotional work. I looked at that Irish team.
Wasn't their best team, was it, as well?
No, it was nowhere near their best team. But boy, that's not to take anything away from Ireland. And listen, when the All Blacks played there, in Dublin a couple of years later, they proved it. You know, they proved that
it was definitely our best team that we could field at the time. So
they backed it up. And, you know, you think back to that Japanese result against the Springboks. It's just that these results are few and far between. I think I can remember Western Samoa. Was it Western Samoa or Fiji that beat Australia in Australia a few seasons ago? That might have been Western.
Yeah.
That might have,
Samoa, yeah.
That was Samoa. I don't want to keep
match.
calling them Western Samoa, but Manu
They gave them
Samoa.
a battering.
Beg your pardon. Oh, gave them an absolute battering. And when those results come along, they're damn good for the game. Not so good for the people who support those teams, but you know,
I think the exception would be Japan, right? And so obviously Japan beating the Box, and then beating the USA, which, if I recall, in 2015, well, prior to 2015, Japan had they not won a World Cup game ever? Is that right? Or they'd only drawn one, so they were considered to be.
They'd won one up to then.
So it was considered that, you know, I think most people would have pipped that Japan would probably not win a game, and then they obviously beat South Africa and then hammered the USA quite comfortably. They couldn't beat Scotland to make it to the quarters. And I think they probably had a forgettable period between 2015 and 19. But when they went back to back, Ireland and Scotland, I think it showed that they're not they fluked it. And I think Japan has the right ingredients, and they've got money, probably long-term development, good ability to get coaches. And you'd hope, I mean, my hope is that, I don't know what will happen, but Japan, the way the trajectory suggests they could be, you know, a top 6 team if they keep going. I'm not sure if they're going to keep having dips, but I wonder who the next one is. And I guess with the same ingredients of what Japan has, which is money, coaching, competition, you'd think the USA could be on that trajectory if we're lucky. Which would be really
good.
I mean,
the common thing there, I mean, you're saying that Japan has got money. Well, yes, the country has got money, but the actual the union itself is a very much an amateur setup, and has got some real problems as to how it has actually run now. So to put a damper on it, but on the positive side, you got to say, look, they've got a professional competition league kicking off next year, rather than the company competition they've had in the past. And as you say, decent coaches over the last 12 or so years, probably starting with Eddie Jones. So they are definitely heading in the right direction. As you say, the USA again have money as a country, as a union. Well, let's see. They went into meltdown and went bankrupt effectively, and ended up selling off the Rugby channel for $1. So part of that, but again, they've also got themselves a professional league now that's been around for a couple of years. 4 years, I think, with obviously with 3 full seasons, obviously 1 season COVID impacted. So again, they've got the ingredients there. In fact, they've got that professional league. Canada, with a team in that league, with the Toronto Arrows, in theory, they've also got the starting to put the ingredients together to improve with the Fiji Drua and Moana Pacifica. You're looking at the ingredients there for both. For all 3, Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga, all to improve. So, if we're to put our rose-tinted glasses on and be all optimistic, yes, you've got Japan, the USA, Canada, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, 6 tier 2 nations that have got that are putting the building blocks in place to improve. If we look at South America now, the Premier Liga Sudamerica, I think it's called. They're professional league, and I put air quotes there because it's definitely a level lower than the Major League Rugby, where they've got teams from Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Brazil. There's 2 more. I've gone blank. Anyway, so they've got a league, but that's got like so you might say Major League Rugby's got like a 5-year growth. They've got like a 10-year growth to get up to something competitive. So that's the positive side of things. I'm going to throw a stat at you now that that you might find interesting. And whilst those guys are getting the right building blocks in place, you look at Australia. Australia. So in the second half of 2021, Australia Rugby will play 13 professional rugby matches. New Zealand will play 165.
I saw that yesterday.
Because of the NPC piece, and it shows that Australia, they've got in place for the Super Rugby players and their internationals have got something to do. All their non-internationals basically only work 6 months a year, which is just nuts.
And it's a shame because they've obviously had many pops at the NRC and had attempts at getting it going. And if they could get that going, and not, I think last time they launched it, they wanted it to be profitable within year one or something, which is just going to be very difficult to do. So
yeah,
I think when they have it, they probably don't get the support they hope. But a lot of people could look at the NPC and believe that the support isn't as good as it should be, or look at the days of the early 90s when used to get sellout crowds every year. And I think the NRC probably needs to be more pragmatic about its expectations and what the goals are, because it seems like it starts and then it fails every couple of years because they need the money, or they expect it to bring in big dough.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the NRC, essentially, they're giving their non-internationals something to do for 4 or 5 months. I mean, let's be honest. Steve and I love the NPC. Obviously, we get around as many games as we can, and we adore it. But look, the crowds are poor. I don't think it's marketed very well. I think they get a lot. There should be bigger crowds. It should be more part of the fabric of the of communities. To be honest.
Yeah, Paul. I think that's, like, for me, that's a bit of a ball drop by the provincial union, some of the provincial unions themselves, where they, it bugs the heck out of me. Like, for example, the city that I live in, Auckland, that they play games at Eden Park in front of 500 people at a really, really big stadium. But if they brought it out to Waitakere Stadium or to Western Spring Stadiums, which are smaller ground, bring your community, get your community more involved in the game. I mean, so we saw those wonderful images from Pukekura Park back in, seems like a million years ago. Was it round one or round two? When Hawke's Bay were playing there, and just looked absolutely fantastic. Crowd the crowd right on top of the players. I think there are things you can do, and I think both, even across the Tasman, I just think their administration has played a really, really big part in the direction of their game. There's been a lot of power brokers. They've obviously, maybe in their eyes, had the wrong people who haven't been working together. And we've also seen the same over in the Pacific Islands, where basically Tonga have had no administration whatsoever, and both Samoa and Fiji have been run by tyrants. And I don't think that has actually helped the game. And if you sort of look at it, New Zealand, I just think, I just thought COVID was going to be the perfect opportunity to have a reload and think about where this game is, because I think it's a community that keeps that NPC, the fires burning. Because I can tell you this for nothing, I don't think New Zealand Rugby give two continentals about it. They're more worried about where they're going to sign the next All Black deal.
Yeah, I think the keeping they have a, well, my take is they know that they believe what's important to them, which is having enough money to keep their players from going offshore. And I think that's their very, very, that's one of the key goals. And they, it is important. But you guys probably have some interesting takes on that. On your comment before, Stephen, about the Australian rugby, have you guys listened to the podcast called The Breakdown? which is a documentary series podcast.
No, I can't say.
No, it's not mine.
I think you should have a look at it. It's not to promote other podcasts, of course, which is sacrilege, but this is a documentary that the Australian did on effectively what's happened to Australian rugby over the last 20 years, because effectively the take is Australian rugby was at an exceptional position in 2000, and then had a massive windfall with the World Cup, and effectively they blew it. It's interesting. So this is probably a documentary not from a rugby supporters point of view. It's from a news media. It's quite interesting. I think there's a lot on the Folau thing, and but I think it'll probably be worth some people tuning in if you like to research or think about the off-field financial economic component of rugby, administrative component. I found it really interesting.
And one of the issues that Australia's had is again the power of the players' union and how much percentage of revenue they managed to get to say that had to be paid towards players. That was a problem for them. Obviously, here we've got that with the players' union, and one of the things that's holding up, and part of the discussions at the moment about Silver Lake is being asked to reduce that percentage. But anyway, that's as you say. If we head down that rabbit hole, we could be for a very long time on that one.
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, no. If you need to jump off, don't worry about it. One other thing that I want to talk about before we end the show is Bailey Sullivan signing for the Hurricanes. The Waikato player and Chiefs player, with both Laumapi and Vince Arso leaving the Hurricanes. He's signed down there at the Chiefs. He's behind Anton Leonard-Brown, Quinn Tupaia, and Alex Nankivell. So I can see it's a good move for him down there, where he'll be joining Billy Proctor and Peter Manga Jensen in a really young collection of centres.
Yeah, real example of a guy that I probably thought has he got super rugby level in him, and boy, the move into centre has been a revelation, and he's looked really, really good since he's gone into that midfield position. So you listen, that's a big call. It's a big call, but an early call from the Hurricanes to pick him up. But good luck to him.
Yeah, in Proctor's 22, Bailey Sullivan's 23, Peter Manga Jensen's 23. It's a really young midfield. And I think that's what we're seeing more now as more and more players who are fringe All Blacks head overseas that wouldn't have earlier in their career, is we're seeing younger squads like that, because you then add, obviously, Wes Houston at 25. Well, he's practically a veteran, because you've got Royasi, who's 24, and Julian Sevilla, obviously the old man of the group, at 31 as the outside backs. Shows you how young that entire black line is for the Hurricanes, with Julian Sevilla being pretty much the only one over 25 in that back line, which is impressive. So I think it's a good move for him. I say behind those players at the Chiefs to go down to the Hurricanes, but an interesting choice from the Hurricanes, because I think they could do with a bit of experience in that section in that area. Really,
absolutely, Paul. I think I'm about to make a move of myself, because I can smell dinner lofting from the kitchen, mate. So
that sounds great. I just wanted to quickly talk about that before wrapping things up. So thank you very much for joining me, Stephen. Thank you, Con, for joining us, who's dropped off. Folks, don't forget, 5 p.m. every single day, lockdown beers and a rugby chat. Not so much. So Sonny Williams thinks that Quade Cooper should have played. Yeah, he did. I don't really pay much attention to Sonny Williams' opinions. He's not the best pundit, to be honest. He needs to do a bit of work in that area. So that's why I didn't bring that one up. Do join us, I say, tomorrow at 5 p.m. We'll keep these going for the while. Also, 8 p.m. tomorrow evening, Tuesday evening, we'll have the Drive and More show, as we do always, where we'll be looking back at the Bledisloe a little bit, but also looking forward to the Rugby Championship at the weekend. Also, we might have some news around the NPC at that point to talk about as well. So hopefully we'll start to see some announcements come out about that. So do join us for the Driving Maul show tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. after the Lockdown Beers and Rugby Chat at 5 p.m.